Hello everyone, my name's Cliff and welcome back to my channel. This is Cliff's Dark Gems. Today I'm going to be doing a video of my biggest surprises of the year. These are 10 books that I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. It could have been maybe that they were from different genres, maybe a new author, or just the kind of book that you wouldn't normally find me reading, but they kind of blew me away. None of these books are in my top 10 that I presented previously, but yeah, enjoy and stay tuned. Okay everyone, before we begin, I just want to mention two booktubers who recently kind of gave a little bit of a shout out to my channel, which I really appreciate. And the first was an award that I received, the Paxi Award from Gareth at Book Songs and Other Magic. Thank you so much, I really appreciate that. And you know, the little bit that I knew of Pax, I really enjoyed her. It's kind of, I always feel that I really wish that I had got to know her a little bit better. And I can see the impact that she's had on booktube, which is beautiful. But yeah, I just wish sometimes that I had known that person better. And she seemed like such a special person. And yeah, no, I know that Ollie from Criminology created this thing, this awards, Pax Awards. And it's very special. And thank you, Gareth, for including me as one of the recipients of the award. And also thank you to William from William's Library. He gave me a nice shout out the other day. Yeah, and please go check out his channel, he's growing. Just check him out and see if you enjoy his content as well. Okay, and being on the subject of shout outs, I just think this is such an important thing in booktube. And I think that you know, it's a community where we need to support each other. There's so much going on in the world, and there's so much nonsense on social media with people, and so much hate. And the thing to do is spread a little bit of love. That's why I've actually enjoyed doing my shout out videos, and I'm definitely going to do a couple more before the end of the year. After all, it's a festive season. Let's recognize each other, let's enjoy each other, and let's appreciate each other. Okay, let's get on to my list, and this is in no particular order. I want to start off with a book that I enjoyed, although I think that enjoy is a wrong word here. I did not expect to enjoy it. It's out of my comfort zone right at the beginning of the year. It's more like a literary thing, not so much a horror, but that is We Need to Talk About Kevin by Lionel Shriver. Now, I went into this book, and after the first 10 pages or so, I said, I don't really want to read this book. I'm going to be bored as hell. And there are a couple of reasons for that. First of all, you know what the ending is about, and it is tragic. It's about a school shooting, and it's about this boy who kills some of his schoolmates and a teacher. And the book is written from his mother's perspective. And also, another thing, in the beginning it really didn't interest me at all, is that it's written in an epistolary format, and I think basically that means that it's a series of letters. The whole book is letters from this mother to the ex-husband, and it tells the story of their life and their marriage and giving birth to Kevin, the child Kevin, and Kevin growing up. And it really sucked me in, and it was uncomfortable, and it was horrible, uncomfortable, difficult to read, but incredibly tense. And it sucked me in. I could not stop reading. And as the tension grew to that terrible day at the school, I just could not put the book down. So although I did not enjoy it in the traditional sense, this was a book that you cannot, I could not rate below 4 stars. I gave it 4 stars because it dragged a little bit at the beginning. But yeah, I would still highly recommend it. But be warned, it does get very dark. And yeah, Kevin is a kind of character. And it also goes into the whole kind of nature nurture thing. It was very, very interesting. But yeah, it was a difficult book to read. And the mother was also not exactly likable. Yeah, I would recommend it. And that is We Need to Talk About Kevin. Okay, the next book, everyone, and this is actually put in order from right at the beginning of the year to the more recent books that I've read. The second big surprise for me was Perdido Street Station by China Mabel. Now, I read this as part of the Week of Weird from Jason's Weird Reads, and I was very unsure. I was very uncertain when I started reading it. First of all, it's a very long book. Second of all, it has very science fiction kind of, cyberpunk kind of elements, and it just did look a little bit too weird for me. I've read a lot of high fantasy in my younger days, I've read a lot of horror, but this seemed to be something outside of my comfort zone. And let me tell you, it blew me away. It was nearly a 5-star read for me. It basically is about the city. It becomes almost a character in itself. And it's so imaginative, the city and its occupants and these weird and wonderful creatures. And this like mad scientist dude who's actually trying to help this creature who comes in, who can no longer fly, because it no longer has wings, they've been clipped off. And yeah, there's all sorts of strange things happening in this book. But what really impressed me about this book is the incredible world building. And just so descriptive. The things he says about this city and about the characters and about all the strange variety of different creatures in the city and what's going on in the city, it held me entranced. I've never read a book like it before, and it really changed my mind about kind of genre and about what kind of books I might like and might not like. Because at that stage I think I was very pigeonholed into the kind of books that I expected I liked. And this just exceeded all expectations. The world building in particular was just blew my mind. And there were some scenes in the second half of the novel that really, really stayed with me. So yeah, that's Perdido Street Station by China Mabel. Okay, next up we have Jane Slayer by Charlotte Bronte and Sherry Browning Urban, I think it is. Yeah. Now, this was very interesting because as a student, one of my favourite reads, one of my favourite classic reads was Jane Eyre. I absolutely love that book. And I didn't know what to expect going into this. The possibility that it might completely stuff it up by adding in this kind of paranormal romance sort of thing. So I was skeptical. But I went into this book and, man, I couldn't stop reading. It does kind of put a mirror on the life of Jane Eyre, being brought up by this horrible aunt and kids or whatever, and going to this boarding school, eventually becoming governess and kind of falling in love with Mr. Rochester, the character, and then he's got some scary secrets as well. And this is pretty much exactly the same, except you throw in some zombies, some monsters, some vampires, and a werewolf or two, and you get some very, very interesting storytelling, and I loved it. And I think the thing that really set it apart was the character, Jane Slayer. Very female, strong protagonist, and perhaps one of my favourite characters of the year. She was just so awesome, she was sassy, she was brave, she was a kind of kick-ass character, and I really, really enjoyed her. I like to see strong female characters in my stories. So yeah, that's Jane Slayer. Okay, next up we have To the Vanishing Point by Ellen Dean Foster. Another one of those that I wasn't sure about the genre. First thing I was appreciated was the cover, and I thought, oh, this is a cool cover. But when you look at a cover like this, the book could either be complete crap or it could be a real gem. Fortunately for me, this was an absolute gem, and it's about this family in America, and they're on holiday and they're going to Vegas, and so instead of flying there, they take a road trip, and what happens is they pick up this hitchhiker, and everything changes, and from then on their way to Vegas, they take all sorts of wrong turns. The book gets very weird. It's a definite blend of horror and science fiction and perhaps sort of fantasy, but it's absolutely wonderful. And it's not the last by Alan Dean Foster that I'm going to read, but yeah, do yourselves a favour and pick up Alan Dean Foster. I really enjoyed this book and it was a pleasant surprise. Okay, next up we probably have one of the biggest surprises of the lot, and that is The Shrinking Man by Richard Matheson. Now, if you look at this cover very closely, it's about a tiny little man. He's obviously shrunk and he's battling a spider, and that's what I thought the story was going to be about. I thought it was going to be like this kind of survival horror, kind of a hide and seek, and that's all I was really expecting. Instead it was a hell of a lot more. And I should have expected it being Richard Matheson, but this little guy, you kind of flash back into his adult life, and the story is about ideas and theories and stuff, and just this man is being stripped of everything that he holds dear as he gets smaller, and he can't do anything. He's helpless against the process. He is getting smaller, 1/7 of an inch. I don't know what the measurement was, but there's nothing he can do. He's been to doctors, no one can help him. And as he gets smaller, he loses his job, he loses everything. And the question I ask you is, if you're in that kind of situation, what would you do? How would you react? It is a wonderful story. Like I said, with so many ideas, and makes you so thought-provoking and powerful, talking about our humanity. And also the idea of being a man. He's stripped of his manhood as well. But yeah, it's an awesome novel. And as a science fiction classic, this has been my favourite this year. Definitely been my favourite. And yeah, he did such a good job with this novel. And I think I might like to reread it again at some stage. And that is The Shrinking Man. Yeah. Yes. There we go. Okay, the next 5 novels or novellas are on my Kindle, so I'll just show them up there. First one is Sour Candy by Keelan Patrick Burke. Now, I went into it knowing very little. I knew there was a very, very creepy premise, and let me just explain that very quickly. It's about this guy who goes in to buy some candy for his girlfriend at a store. And this boy is having a tantrum with his mother, who looks very haggard and beaten down. And when eventually things go to normal, he goes outside with the candy to drive back to his girlfriend. And there's an accident. I'm not going to say anything more, but this man's life utterly changes. It's thrown upside down, and it is very much to do with this creepy kid. And this book went to places that were very weird, very dark, and very, very messed up. But I absolutely enjoyed it, and I want to find more from this particular author. So that is Sour Candy. The 7th book is The Ballad of Black Tom by Victor Lavelle, as a retelling of Horror at Red Hook, I think it is, by H.P. Lovecraft, which is actually a terrible story, very racist. And this book is retold from a black person's point of view, about a black man who's hustling. He's got an empty guitar case, and he goes out into the suburbs and hustles in order to put food on the table for himself and his old man. And he goes into these white suburbs, and he's on a mission one day. He has to deliver something, and just this whole thing about magic and these terrifying creatures and stuff opens up. It's an excellent, excellent novel. I definitely want to read more from this author. I know there's one that a lot of people are raving about at the moment, but I'm definitely going to look to read more from this author next year and in the years to come, because I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think he did an absolutely brilliant job, and actually better than Lovecraft in the case of this particular story. So that's The Ballad of Black Tom. Okay, next up we have the second extreme horror novella. Sorry, no, this is actually extreme horror novel that I've ever attempted to read. And that was Offseason by Jack Ketchum. The first book, extreme book that I tried to read, I DNF'd. That was Resurrection something, can't remember, by Roth James White, never mind. But I DNF'd it. It was just too disgusting and sick for me. And I went into this book thinking, I've heard so much about it, it's a book that I wanted to read by these inbred cannibals. And I thought, yeah, let's just give it a go. And I was blown away. And it's basically about these people that come into this little town. They're from New York and they're having a little time together in this little cabin in the middle of the woods, far away from civilization, tiny little town. And what's very close to them is a family of inbred, absolutely terrible cannibals who want nothing more but to nibble on their flesh. And so what happens is, well, that's pretty much the plot. Okay, it's not basically the night where these two groups of people meet. But the difference between this book and the book I first tried to read was the writing. The writing was awesome. It dragged you in. It made you really care about some of the characters. Although some people on Goodreads say that's absolute crap. I really cared about some of these characters, what would happen to them. And it was super descriptive and exciting and very tense. And yes, this is not for the faint-hearted. This book is extreme. It's all the trigger warnings. Believe me, it is very extreme. But I was thoroughly entertained at the same time. And Jack Ketchum did such an amazing job of actually bringing this book to life. So yeah, that is Offseason by Jack Ketchum. And there was another book after that I read with Bad is Rad. That was a buddy read, and that was a Black Farm. And I'm looking forward to reading the follow-up to it, Return to the Black Farm. And I'm going to do that in the next couple of months and have another buddy read with Bad. Okay, the 9th book is The Devil Rides Out by Dennis Wheatley. Now, I expected this book about the occult, black magic and Satanism to reflect its age, because this is an old book. I was pleasantly surprised. This was so much fun for such an old book. It was exciting, in some way kind of swashbuckling, and it's about these friends who battle these Satanists, and it takes place kind of all over the globe, well, not all over the globe, but there's so much intrigue, excitement, and it's a thriller, but it's also very dark and very creepy, and there's some very horrifying scenes in there, kind of scary. But obviously when you're going to throw in black magic, the occult and Satanism, you can expect that. But I've got to admit that I was really surprised by this book. I expected it, like I say, to read as a classic. And I came out, yeah, it was just a wonderful story, brilliantly told. And I want to look for some more of Dennis Wheatley's books in future. That is The Devil's Ride Out. Okay, Brian, the final book that I'm going to talk about is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Morena Garcia. Now I know this book has been spoken about on booktube before. It comes highly recommended from a lot of booktubers. But to be honest with you, the two things that kind of put me off. First thing was the cover. I didn't find anything particularly enticing about the cover. Although some people might say it's beautiful. It doesn't really look like a horror cover to me. And second of all, that just Gothic fiction is not my favourite genre, or subgenre of horror, with the one exception of We Have Always Lived in the Castle, which I spoke about in my top 10 books. But this was very surprising. A little bit of a slow start, which is why I gave it 4 stars. But it is beautifully written. It's about this a socialite who, you know, she's a party goer, lots of friends, lipstick, goes to parties, and she goes to follow up on this distress call from her cousin in this place called High Place. I have given a review of this already, but let's just say that the setting, the writing, the characters are exquisite. It's beautifully written, it's very creepy, and once again, the female protagonist, the female of the story, I rooted for her. She was just so well written, and she's strong and courageous. And also this book went to very, very weird places. kind of grisly places at the end, and I was there for it. I can only say that it was an excellent story. I think if it didn't drag a little bit in the middle or at the beginning, I probably would have given it 5 stars. I will probably stick with 4 stars. Okay everyone, so those are my unexpected surprises for 2023. Books that I went in with low expectations and came out like, wow, that was actually really good. Please let me know what your favourite book has been of 2023, or your biggest surprise. Let me know if you've read any of these other books down in the comments below. Let's start a conversation. But yeah, and if you enjoy my content, please be sure to like and subscribe and give me a thumbs up. I wish you all a very happy Christmas and merry festive season, and take care of yourselves, keep those pages turning, and cheers.